just a few bread and butter items. This Chico's necklace sold for $19.99. If it's jewelry, I paid less than $1 for it. Probably between a dime and 50 cents, if that at all. Vintage sterling silver bracelet. This sold for $29.99. These vintage signed rhinestone barrettes. These sold for, there were 2 of them. They sold for $24.99. This vintage Black & Decker toaster oven. This sold for $39.99. I paid about $4 for that. This vintage Wrangler Rancher women's shirt. This sold for $10.99. Wanted to get rid of it. Had it a while. This vintage girdle. This sold for $14.99. I got these in a whole big lot. They were all brand new with tags, different brands, different styles. I paid, I think, between $3.50 and $4.50 each. This vintage boning snapback hat sold for $10.99. Got that in a lot off highbid.com of a whole bunch of hats. Probably the cost of it was probably about $1. This vintage Writer's Yearbook magazine. This sold for $24.99. Was for one magazine, and I got a whole bunch of magazines in a lot. This vintage Paris charm bracelet. This sold for $19.99. This vintage Arn wide bangle bracelet. This sold for $12.99. This Alex and Annie beaded bracelet. They still do sell. This sold for $10.99. This vintage yellow Harris $2.50 casino coin sold for $25 for one coin. Vintage Las Vegas blackjack pendant. This sold for $8.99. These blue dragonfly earrings. These sold for $12.99. Vintage brooch lot. This sold for $8.99. This vintage puzzle, $16.99. May or may not contain all the pieces, and 50 cents and $1 for that. This vintage acrylic Sarah Coventry orange necklace. This sold for $10.99. This varsity pin cheerleading pin. This sold for $9.99. This vintage Ralph Lauren glass. This sold for $34.99. This vintage VHS, $6.99. Paid about 50 cents. I got them in a whole big lot of new sealed VHSs a long time ago for $5. This vintage lead crystal creamer. This sold for $12.99. This plastic crane Tonka sold for $7.99. These Park Lane earrings. These sold for $19.99. This vintage cameo marcasite ring sold for $17. $8.99. The brand is BOHM. This vintage gold tone foxhorn brooch. This sold for $19.99. This vintage open bust khaki thigh shaper. This sold for $20.99. Picked it up because it was vintage and I knew it would sell eventually. Probably paid about $2 to $3 for that. Vintage champagne freshwater pearl earrings sold for $16.99. These silver tone pierced earrings sold for $9.99. This black bead lanyard. This sold for $12.99. This jewelry making supply lot, 14 packs. Again, these were in with the jewelry lot. These sold for $19.99 for 14 little packs of jewelry making supplies. And sterling silver Masonic cufflinks. These sold for $42.99. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. If you haven't already, please like, please subscribe, and have a wonderful weekend. I will talk to you later. Take care.